What's up, y'all? Billy from Perma Pastures Farm. As promised, I am going to show you, we're going to cover a lot more preparedness than I have in a while. And I'm not going to go through all the reasons why I'm doing that, but just look around you. I think you'll know. All right, check this out. Out there in my freezer, now I got to make more space because I got 8 freezers out here essentially, and they're pretty much full. But I got animals down there that need to go into that freezer, so I got to take some stuff out. Now, check this out. I got a pork arm roast. This is from 2022. Here's another pork arm roast. It's just a different part of it. Now, first of all, let me tell you where that even came from. Now, that would be what most people call the picnic ham. If you've done any of my processing classes, which, by the way, we got one coming up pretty soon. You're probably seeing it flash across the screen right now. And we got a few slots open. Anyway, if you've ever been through any of my classes, you know what the picnic ham is, okay? That's essentially where this arm roast came. In most cases, that would be ground up and made into sausage or something like that. But when I do it at home, I like to leave some of my primal cuts in primal cuts, or at least I'll cut those primal cuts in half, not knowing exactly what I want to do with it. Well, this was a guinea hog that I did back in 2022, and there's a lot more of them out there. And I'm going to show you what I do. Sorry, y'all, the bees are flying around right now because they are digging this awesome fall day that just happens to not have any streaks in the sky right now. How about that? Well, anyway, I did this guinea hog back in 2022. He's been sitting out there, and there's a lot more of them out there that I still need to get to. I'm going to show you what I do with meat that people say is too old. Now, I'm already hearing people say right now, I can hear it right now, oh, that's too old, you should compost it, you should do whatever. Folks, I've eaten meat that was 5 years old out in that freezer, and if you sit through one of my classes, you'll learn about how to avoid freezer burn by doing a lot of the methods that I'm going to teach you in any of my classes when we wrap this thing up, where we avoid all of that sort of thing. So like I said, 2022 is not old meat to me, but I'm going to show you how we repurpose it out here and do it in accordance to the preparedness construct that you choose. I'm just going to show you one of many ways in which I go about doing this. Yes, you could can it, you could do a lot of things, but I'm going to show you, and I'm going to break this thing down as soon as it thaws out. All right, so I'm going to take this 3-year-old arm roast. It's the following day. It's thawed out. It's ready to rock and roll. I'm basically going to sear it, and I'm going to stick it in this crock pot. Somebody might be saying, well, why would you go through all that extra effort? Because check it out. When things jump off, I'm going to be the only one out there putting on weight. You dig? We still got some of these awesome peppers coming out of the high tunnel, and then of course we got some onions here. And I'm going to add a few other things as I feel like it. There's not a whole lot of a recipe here. It's just I know what I like to eat. So in here, all I'm going to do at the present time is basically take some rice that is not fortified. Because, look, I have a very specific diet that I follow. I want to eat as good as I can. I'm going to put some rice in here, and whatever the salt calls for on it, I'm basically going to double it. Because whenever you freeze dry something, because that's the ultimate thing that's going to happen here, whenever you freeze dry something, at least in my experience, when you reconstitute it, for some reason it always feels like it's missing salt. But think about it. If you find yourself in a grid down scenario or in a situation where all I have is this bottle of water and I got my pack of freeze dried whatever, I don't want to have to be fooling around with, okay, I need to season it, I need to do all this. No, I want it to be perfect when I pull it out of that bag. I've done this so many times, folks, you have no idea. I've done it so many times, I know exactly. So whatever it is on the salt, I double it. Because that may be the only means in which you're able to get any minerals, in a messed up scenario. Because it's not like you're gonna go through the mail and order a bunch of magnesium breakthrough, okay? You're gonna have to get everything right there in your salt. So that's exactly why I oversalt everything. And all the tales that they tell you about salt. If anything else, this experience that I've had recently has made me realize that everything I've been told about nearly everything is a manufactured lie, especially when it comes to health. So these are basically what I'm going to start with, just in a nutshell. I'm going to put the rice in here. I'm going to saute these. I'm going to put them in with the rice. I'm also going to take some broth that I made from the bones of those sheep that I processed. Just got finished doing that a little while ago. I'm going to put that in here. That's what I'm going to cook the rice in, along with this. And maybe I'll throw some other things in there as well. All right, here's the next step. All right, so I got 5 trays on my freeze dryer trays. These are all frozen right now. I mean, these are basically solid. There's parts of this that I didn't record because honestly, I think it goes without saying. There's no recipe to speak of. It's just things in there that I like. And I'm also thinking about things that are in accordance to the diet that I want to maintain. Even in a collapsed down scenario or whatever the scenario may be. Like I said, you got your salt, which is providing a lot of the minerals. Let's say you don't have any multivitamins or anything else to take with you. Okay, well, I'm getting a whole lot of it through high quality salt, which for me is Baja Gold or Celtic Sea Salt or Redmond's. I really love Redmond's for a whole lot of reasons, but I love them all, and I use each and every one of them every day because each one of them has a different mineral profile. Yeah, sounds like I put a lot of work into this. Well, I've been doing this for so long, y'all, and I've been tweaking this for so long that I know exactly how I want to do it. Plus, I'm using up things that I don't necessarily use every day. Or it could be meat that in my case has been sitting out there for a few years. And I'll talk more about the other cuts that I use typically for stuff like this. Now, what else is in here? I have rice, and I basically put that in an Instant Pot. I think I called it a crock pot last time. Got a bunch of peppers, obviously I talked about that. Got onions. You know, a lot of this stuff came from the garden, and when you get the peppers out here, they gotta be used like that. Well, it's just me and Michelle here right now. So I'm not gonna use up a handful of peppers just like that. Yeah, I could freeze them and do whatever, but that's another way where I'm taking some really awesome stuff out there that's in the garden and able to put it into some preparedness food, knowing that I'm getting the full biological profile of whatever was growing down in there, which is going to be light years better than anything you can hope to buy. Okay, so I got some beans in here too. I'm thinking about, just look at it this way, y'all. Imagine the worst should happen. Things jump off. Do you want to be trying to put meals together at that point, or do I want to be able to tear the packet on the freeze-dried packet, put the water in there, and eat, knowing full well that I have everything I want in that one pack, in that meal, where I'm not thinking, okay, shoot, well, I got freeze-dried meat over here, I got rice over here, now I need to break out the solar oven, make sure it's tactical, you know, that it's not aiming and drawing attention to myself. No, if I find myself in that position, I want to make sure that everything is as tactically sound as it can be. I also want to make sure it's as nutritionally sound as it can be. All right, so we'll talk more about that in a minute. So what's next is basically put this in my freeze dryer. So far, this has taken basically 2 days because I'm doing this video in between the raindrops. That's the beauty of being able to do stuff like this. Oh, one thing I also need to point out, the broth. That's another way I'm getting tons and tons of minerals because all those chickens that we processed, I basically mixed the chicken broth along with the broth that I got from the lamb bones. Basically, you know, make some good bone broth out of that too. Well, that's another array of minerals. Look, y'all, this thing is so nutrient dense in so many different ways. You can't hope to buy this. I'm dead serious. You can buy all that stuff, the ready-made freeze-dried stuff, and yeah, it'll keep you alive maybe, but this will make you thrive because I made it exactly to the specifications that mean something to me and my family. All right, with that said, I'm going to throw this in the freeze dryer and we'll pick it up later. It's been a minute, okay? Now, I was taking them off the trays and I'm putting it basically in this bowl here, and I wanted to show you something because what I normally do, regardless of how long this thing runs, I put it through an extra dry cycle no matter what. You know why? Because moisture is your worst enemy. Absolutely your worst enemy when it comes to food storage. Moisture and oxygen. So I make sure, even if it means I got to slow things down, which is tough for me to do when I'm doing this type of thing, I make sure every single bit of moisture is out of this thing, and we want it as dry as possible. Now I got my gloves on also. Now why would I do that? Because there's moisture in your hands. I mean, that's how much care I take in this thing. So what I do from here, it basically graduates from here. I just basically come over here, squeeze it up. Now you're gonna find out that when you put beans, when you do this, there's little nuanced things that you're just gonna learn when you're doing this that you can't do it any other way. Like, for example, when you do beans, if you try to freeze dry beans by themselves, yeah, go ahead and try to bust them loose and see what happens. You're gonna find out they all turn to powder. I kid you not. But if I find myself in a position to where I'm having to get into this stuff anyway. I really ain't caring. All it's gonna do, those beans, you'll find out when you reconstitute it, it'll actually just make a thicker sauce that was already on there. But if you just kind of squeeze it a little bit, you don't go too crazy, you just kind of squeeze it a little bit, just enough to break it up, you'll see that you still keep most of the integrity of a lot of the beans in there. So I'm just basically gonna break these up. And like I said, that's one of my tricks right there. I'm sure other people do it as well, but that's one of the things that I make absolutely sure is no matter how dry it is, I make sure I go through and I hit it for at least another dry cycle. And in some cases, depending on what it is, I might even hit it again. Because, you know, what good is any of this stuff if it's gonna go rancid? So I'll just make absolutely sure this stuff is dry. So now that I got it in here, let me get my bags ready and get some of the other stuff I'm gonna need, and then we'll drive on. So I got everything in the bag so far, and the last thing I'm gonna do, now one of these oxygen absorbers is typically good for a bag this size. Nuh-uh. Like I told you, oxygen and moisture are enemies, so I put 2. I would rather spend more money on getting these guys squared away, and then you don't want to fool around here, so I try to squeeze out as much air as I possibly can, and I'm going old school on this. Basically just using an iron, and I want to press down the edge, and then I move it, since I'm using a wooden block, and the block obviously has grains in it, I move it around a little bit to make sure I'm getting a pretty good seal. Now, before I ever store this away, I'm gonna make sure I set that thing off to the side, and until the sides suck in, I should be able, until I know that thing is absolutely secure, I'm not going to actually put it away. So I'm just gonna, did that once, and just do it again. Now, here's the cool thing about all this. I took meat. Now, a lot of people would tell you to go ahead and throw it away. If you want to do that, you knock yourself out, or, you know, feed it to your dogs or whatever. Nah, I'm not doing that. Like I said, I've eaten some pretty old meat before that people would tell you was no good. And so here it is. We had, 3-year shelf life on it already. I just gave it another 30, okay? Just by doing it the way I did, making sure all of that oxygen is out of there. And also I'm using cuts that maybe I don't use every day. That's exactly why when I teach a butchery class, which by the way, we got one coming up this weekend with Sow the Land. If you're interested, we got 2 slots open. That's gonna be this Friday and Saturday. I know it's late notice, but here we go. This is exactly why I teach these things the way I do, and why it may be in your best interest to leave some of these cuts whole instead of maybe grinding it or doing something else with it, because I don't know for sure what I might need. Like, I'm not gonna take an entire pig and then just grind it up and then make a bunch of sausage out of it. You can do that sort of thing, but that's just not the needs that I have. So when I go out here and I'm doing my little inspection in the freezer, which I'm doing a lot more of as of late, and I'm thinking, okay, what's the stuff I've had in here for a long, long time that I haven't gotten to, that I'm likely not gonna get into? That's exactly what I'm using up in here. And I'm also using things like those peppers and some of the onions that might be on the verge of maybe not making it. Maybe they're, you only got a few days on some of this stuff when you grow it at your home. Unlike the stuff you buy in the store where they buy it for its shippability, its appearance, and things like that. They don't buy it for flavor, but that's why you and I grow it. It's for flavor, but also its nutritional capabilities and, all the things that it has in it. So think about this. If you go out and get yourself a freeze dryer, that's all well and good. If you don't, consider having some of the other things on hand, like I was talking about, some of the salt, because you're going to need it. A lot of those things, they don't put enough salt in there, in my view, anyway. But this way, this thing is about as nutrient dense as you could ever hope to find, and that's the beauty of having a freeze dryer. But honestly, it's the cuts that I want to get at. Because so many people out there, when you process a pig, people are thinking, okay, well, what do I do with the picnic ham? Because in most cases, you're going to turn that entirely into grind. You don't have to do that. Or some people are going to say, oh man, I got, like in my case, I got 3 years of ham hocks out there, okay? What am I going to do with those? Well, a lot of people would like to smoke them and put them in the beans and stuff like that. I just don't have the time. Ever since this hurricane went down, I'm having to refocus and retool my life in the biggest ways possible. And that's part of the reason why I'm doing these videos now, focusing more on preparedness. Because despite what everybody thinks right now, you're not out of the woods yet. And I'm never going to live as if I'm out of the woods. So take all those cuts, or if you're not like me where you don't have 8 freezers out there working, maybe if you want to do some of this stuff and you already have a freezer or you don't have a bunch of animals put away, well, go find some of that meat on the discount rack. I've done it with those before years ago. I mean, you've got options, you really do. All right, y'all, hopefully that was a blessing to you. Until next time, this is Billy from Perma Pastures Farm, where permaculture is my passion. And believe me, this is part of it. See you next time.